Hang on one second here. I'm streaming this over to our other location. Okay, so we're set up over there. I just got to check one thing here. Control. Hi, good afternoon, welcome. I'm Bill Collins, the owner of the school. We have some students in Hudson watching us also, okay, at our other location over there. Are you guys planning on doing Class A or Class B?
Class A.
Class A?
A, I think.
A, you think? Okay, all right. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go over a handout that I have in this book. If you open it up, on the inside front insert, there should be some staple pages. If you would pull that out, we're going to go over that material, okay? So what we're doing is going over the mechanics of getting a permit, okay? So to get the permit, first of all, you need a regular car license. Are either of you, or are both of you Minnesota residents? Okay, all right. Okay, so you need a regular car license or higher. And then to get the permit, you're going to need a certified birth certificate. Now, what's a certified birth certificate?
Original copy?
It's not the original, believe it or not. It's the copy you get with the embossed stamp on it, the little raised seal. Okay, believe it or not, they don't accept the original. I've had people go there with their original birth certificate with a little feet print and everything, and they don't accept it. It's like, what? Now, you have to go with a certified copy. And you're going to need that when you get your permit. You're going to need it again when you get your license, and you'll need it on any renewal. Yes, a valid passport will work in lieu of the certified birth certificate. Yep.
I don't have a birth certificate.
Well, if you got the
have a passport.
Yep. But you know what's interesting is you needed the certified birth certificate to get the passport, unless you have a passport from another country.
No, I had it, but there was a flood and my copy got destroyed. Okay. But I already had but I just kept renewing my passport.
There you go. Yeah, and you can get certified birth certificates online. It's not that big of a deal. Anybody born outside the U.S., the second page of this handout does explain the documentation you would need. Now, for the Class A test, you're going to have to take 3 knowledge tests, okay? You're going to have to do the general knowledge, air brakes, and combination. 3 knowledge tests. You have to get 80% correct on each of the 3. There are 50 questions on the general knowledge. There are 30 questions on the air brakes, and there are 20 questions on the combination. So a total of 100 questions, okay? To prepare for those 3 tests, you need to study sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, and that's exactly what we have in the Green Book, okay? We've not included section 4, that's for buses. We've not included section 7, 8, and 9. Those are double, triple tanker, and hazmat. We've not included 10, 11, and 12. Those are on the road test. So what we've printed for you here is exclusively the sections of the manual that you need to study for a Class A permit test, okay? As the handout says, the website that I recommend you use for practice test is cdltest.co. There are an abundance of practice websites out there. I highly recommend cdltest.co as the most accurate. It's not perfect. There are some questions on there that are not contained in the Minnesota test, but it's about 90% accurate and the best I've seen. Now, keep in mind there are websites out there that are rather misleading. DMV.org is not a government website. That is a private website. They're trying to sell you stuff. Whoever has that website was just smart enough to grab it when the internet started, before the government's agencies started getting websites. So DMV.org sounds like a government website, but it is not.
Actually, it's .gov. It's actually not.
Yeah, well, there's right, but DMV.org It sounds like it should be, but it's not. So I just want to forewarn you of that. We're going to use cdltest.co later on in our class here, so I can show you how that works. Now the manual is available online. Both the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin have their manual online. You can access the Minnesota manual through our website. If you go to interstatedriving.com, go to resources, you can get on the website. So go to resources right here on our website, and then right here is the commercial driver's license manual. Okay. So I'll put the manual on the screen here. Now there's two things I like about the online manual. First of all, I can do this. So now I can read the thing. Secondly, I like the search engine. If you do a find box, Control F, that will create a find box for you. And anything you type in, it'll find only exactly what you type in. So I typed in slack adjusters, the plural. So it only finds slack adjusters. Okay? Doesn't find the word just. It doesn't find the word slack. It only finds slack adjusters. And that helps you narrow in on exactly what it is that you're looking for. So I find that to be advantageous. Just check one thing here. Back to my handout. Then the other thing that's really helpful is the manual is available as an audio file. Okay. Let's go to mindriveinfo.org, which is the state's, the Department of Public Safety Driver Vehicle Service Division website. And I'm going to go down here to more documents. And let's look at the sections of the manual that are available online on an audio file. And you can see that every section is available. If let's look at how long these things are. The combinations is section 6.
Section 6, combination vehicles.
That's 43 minutes long. But as you can hear, this is reading you
Section 5,
the manual.
Air brakes. This section covers air brake system parts.
So those two were each 45 minutes long, so that's about an hour and a half. The introduction's 40 minutes long.
Commercial driver license manual. 2000.
So that's about 2 hours and 15 minutes total. Section 3 is only 13 minutes.
Section 3, transporting cargo safely.
So that gives you about 2.5 hours so far. And then add in section 2.
Section 2, driving safely. This section covers
See how long it is?
vehicle inspection, basic control of your vehicle.
Exactly. 3 hours and 15 minutes for section 2. Guys, you're pushing 6 hours worth of reading here. Okay? How many people do you suppose read for 6 hours? Or study for 6 hours? Okay? Not very many. So I'm going to give you a shortcut to that to help you narrow and zero in on the things you need to study to pass the test. So hopefully it won't take you 6 hours. But let me continue with this handout, okay? Just have to double check what I'm doing here. So back to the handout. 1 permit test on any one subject is allowed per day. Your first and second attempt is free in Minnesota. If you fail 2 attempts, subsequent tests are $10 a piece. Okay? Don't go to an exam station in the morning, fail a test, and drive to another exam station. They put you into the computer, so they'll know you've tested already that day. All right? Next paragraph. The test is available on paper or with a computer. Most exam stations will require you to take your first test on a computer if they have the computers. Now, the computers have headphones you can listen to, and some people find the headphones advantageous. I don't. Now, going back to the audio file that I showed you a minute ago, I like audio files to help me learn things. They are very powerful. I mean, that's any program you take to learn a new language. It's an audio system. If you took a language class in school, you'd be hearing it spoken, and you would be repeating these words. And so we learn a lot by listening to it. Well, on the test-taking side of it, though, I find that the audio on the headphones on the computer actually can cause confusion for me. Part of it is that when I take a test, I really got to slow myself down and think about the question. Because, let's be honest, they're trying to trick you. Whoever wrote this test, these questions are designed to try to get at least some people to get the wrong answer. And so they may ask a question, what is the correct minimum tread depth for tires other than the front tires? Well, I know the correct answer to that. But there's two words in that sentence, other than. If I miss that, if my brain only hears what is the minimum tread depth for front tires, the answer is 430 seconds. But the question was, what is the tread depth for tires other than the front tires? Correct answer is 230 seconds. Now, they worded the question that way on purpose to try to get some people to get it wrong. I don't like that. I wish they'd just say, what's the tread depth for front tires? What's the tread depth for rear tires? Then there's no confusion in my little brain as to what the question is. So that's why the audio doesn't help me. And I'll tell you, the question that I personally struggle with the most are questions that ask you for the wrong answer. In other words, which of the following is false? So the wrong answer is the right answer? That confuses the daylights out of me. I'm like, wait a minute, what? And so I'm looking at things, the minimum tread depth on the rear tires is 230 seconds. Okay, yeah, that's correct. And I want to answer that as the correct answer because it's correct information. But that's not the right answer. It's the wrong answer because they want me to find the wrong statement. See what I mean? Now, and they're doing that on purpose to get people to fail the test. So the audio headphones don't help me because I got to really kind of go do this. No, wait a minute. And I got to like read the question 3 or 4 times. And I got to look at the answers 2 or 3 times. And really take my time with this. So I don't find the audio helpful on the computer. I like the paper version, guys, and here's why. There are several things that I like about the paper version. First of all, you can skip questions. You can't do that on the computer. When you're taking a computer test, if you get a question, you're stuck with it. You got to answer it. You have no choice. The paper version, you can skip it, come back to it. Now, if you do skip it, make sure you come back, because if you leave it blank, you get it wrong, right? The advantage for me to do that is I can't tell you how many times I remember something a little bit after the fact. Do that all the time. My wife and I kind of have a running joke about that, about how we forget things and then we remember them. And maybe I'm stumped on question number 7, but question number 23 jogs my memory and helps me remember what the answer to 7 is. So I really like that. One thing I don't like about the computer is when you answer the question on the computer, it immediately scores you right or wrong. So if you get it wrong, it goes, and that flusters me. Okay, now I'm like, I got it wrong. And instead of being focused on the next question and trying to come up with the correct answer, my little brain, that's one thing, and I'm getting nervous because I screwed up. See, so this is one of those ignorance is bliss kind of things. I'm better off not knowing. I would just as soon not be scored immediately. I'd rather find out later when I'm all done. But here's the biggest advantage of the paper one. So the way the computer is designed, you got to get 80% in order to pass, right? So on the general knowledge, it's 50 questions. You can only get 8 wrong. If you get 9 wrong, you fail the test. Okay? Actually, that's 70%. Anyway, yeah, it's 70% on the permit test. So you get 8 wrong, you pass. 9 wrong, you fail. Okay? And the way the computer's set up, as soon as you get a 9th question wrong, it shuts it off. You're done. So let's say you're having a bad day, and out of the first 20 questions, you get 9 wrong. It shuts you off. How many questions have you seen? 20. When you take the paper version, how many questions do you see?
50.
Every single one of the 50 questions. If you fail the test and come back to take it on the computer, no way it's going to be the same test. They jumble up the questions, right? You could take the computer test 100 times. You'll never have the same test. The paper version has two versions. 2. So if you were unfortunate enough to fail the first 2 times, the 3rd time, it'd be the same test as one of the first 2 with all the same questions, okay? So which way do you think is better? I like the paper. Now here's the deal. These larger exam stations in the metropolitan area here are the ones that have the computers. So Arden Hills, Egan, Plymouth, downtown St. Paul, Lakin, Chicago, Minneapolis, Anoka, Chaska, Hastings, all of those exam stations have computers. If you go to one of those exam stations and you walk in and you say, I'd like to take my Class A CDL knowledge test, they'll say, okay, go over to computer number 6. If it were me, I'd say, I'd like to take it on paper. Now, I guarantee you something, they'll tell you no. They will say no. And they'll say you have to take it on the computer first. No, you don't. Why not? Because this is the United States of America. And there's this thing called the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And somewhere in there, I seem to remember something about no man should be treated differently under the law. Okay? And the deal is, there's 92 places in the state of Minnesota to take this test, and there's only about a dozen of them that have the computers. All of the smaller exam stations, Red Wing, for example, is open 1 day a week. Stillwater open 1 day a week. Okay? They don't have the computers there. They can't justify the cost of the computers since they're only open 1 day a week. Heck, there's exam stations in Minnesota that are only open 2 days a month. Okay? So those places don't have the computer. So how would you take the test there? Paper. So how can they force you to take it on a computer when you can go and take it on paper? Well, they can't. Okay? They like to think they can, but they can't. So if you want to take it on paper, go to the exam station, tell them you want to take your test. They'll tell you to take it on a computer. Politely ask for the paper. They'll say no. Politely ask to see a supervisor. They'll make you wait. Supervisor comes out. They'll tell you, no, this is our policy. Then just very politely explain. Now, as I understand it, there's 92 places in the state of Minnesota to take this test. The majority of those exam stations don't even have computers. Those exam stations have paper. Now, if Pete or Sam can take it on paper over here, I get to take it on paper here. If you're going to treat me equally under the law, if you're going to honor the Constitution and treat me equally, I have the same right that somebody else does someplace else in this state. And at that point, they'll say, all right, Gamble, we'll give you that. You must have gone to that interstate. You go to that interstate, here you are, here's your paper. Okay? And to be honest with you, I wish that they would. Why is it that they want you to take it on the computer, by the way?
Easier for them.
Easier for them. Because to score it, they got to do this. Get a keystroke. Whereas with the paper version, they got to take the correction code, put it over your test, and actually physically correct the thing. Well, give me a minute here. And about 45 seconds later, they got their job done. And they're too dang lazy to do that. Okay? Well, be polite, be professional, be courteous. Don't get mad, don't get upset, don't raise your voice. They'll throw you out of there. Okay? But stand your ground politely, courteously, and you'll be fine. Okay? Now, the only time limit to the knowledge test are their office hours. So if you get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, you can stay until 4:30. Okay. If you get there an hour before they close, they probably won't let you even start the test. They actually lock their doors 45 minutes before the exam station opens. Excuse me, closes. So they've got the doors locked long before they close. But that's the only time limit in play. Okay. Now, you can take one subject at a time if that works best for you. You could go in, take the general knowledge test for the sake of discussion, pass that, go back out in the parking lot, study the next section, go back in an hour later, take the next test, go back outside. So you do not need to do this in one setting. You can do it, you can break it up. Different days or different times within the same day. Now, this brings to mind the importance of good documentation with these guys. If you're going to do that, when you walk out of the building, make sure you've got a copy of something that says you passed your test. If you tell them, yeah, I'm gonna be back in a little while and take another test, if they say to you, well, that's okay, we'll hang on to your paperwork here, I'll have it right here for you, just come and see me. Okay? So you go out in the parking lot, 10 minutes later, that person's daycare called. Their kid is sick. Where are they going? They're going to go get that kid because daycare is kicking them out, right? So you come in 10 minutes after that. Yeah, I was here, I took my general knowledge here a while ago, I passed it, now I want to take the next one. Oh, yeah, they can't find your paperwork. Well, the gal was, I don't see her now. Oh, that must have been Martha. She had to leave. I took the test and I passed it. Oh, well, if you passed it once, you can pass it again, right over there. Okay? These guys don't care. Now, this also brings to mind how important it is that you document everything that you do with these people, okay? These driver's licenses are very important documents to you, okay? Hang on to every piece of paperwork they give you. Make sure you don't lose it. Maybe take a picture of it so you've got an electronic copy of it, okay? When you get the license in the mail, inspect it very carefully, front and back. Make sure there's no restrictions on here that you don't deserve. We have people getting restrictions on their licenses all the time that they shouldn't have. We got people who don't get restrictions that they're supposed to have. We've had people take a Class A test, get a Class B license. We've had people take Class B test, get a Class A license. People take a test in an automatic, and they aren't restricted like they're supposed to. People take a test in a manual and do have an automatic restriction. It happens constantly with these people. They're inept, okay? And it's so important that this stuff is accurate. We had a customer here a while back. He goes to get his permit, right? Now, I told you have to have a driver's license to get the permit, right? So this young man goes in, passes the test, goes up to apply for the permit. Yeah, I want to get my permit here, pass my test. And oh, by the way, the city is misspelled on my license here. Oh, well, we got to fix that, they say. Well, okay. Well, here, you got to fill out this to correct that. So fill that out. All right, and so they take his license and they punch it void and hand him back his license and the paperwork to apply for the corrected. He lived in Edina and they misspelled Edina. Big deal, right? And they hand it back to him and he says, well, what about my permit? Oh, well, you can't get the permit until you get a new license. What? Yeah, you have to wait until you get a new license in the mail. Then we can issue the permit. When's that going to be? Well, I don't know. I don't know, 6, 8, 10 weeks or something. Honest to God, he had to wait 8 weeks for this thing to show up in the mail with the correct spelling of Edina before he get his permit. So he spent 8 weeks without a permit. Isn't that crazy? I had a student here a while back had a restriction on his license that said no air brakes. He didn't see it. He got the license in the mail. He didn't read the back. He goes to work. He'd been driving truck a year and a half. And he gets pulled over in a regular inspection. Nothing unusual. And the trooper looks at his license and says, son, you can't drive this truck. Excuse me? Right here, son. It says right there, no air brakes. Officer, I took a test with air brakes. Well, sorry, you got a restriction. Officer, I've been driving for a year and a half. Well, you've been driving illegal for an hour and a half, son. Park that truck, call your boss, tell him to come and get it, because you ain't driving it. Put him out of work until he got this all corrected. The craziest story we run across, we had a guy here 2 years ago, June 21st, 12:30 in the afternoon, he takes a test out at the Egan exam station. Passes it. And, you know, the examiner congratulates him and explains the things that he did wrong and yada, yada, yada. And then gives him his paperwork and says, okay, you can go ahead and get your license. And this kid says, do I need my certified birth certificate for that? Yeah, you need that. Well, I didn't bring that with. Well, that's okay. You can go later. Well, I live out by Chaska. Can I go to Chaska? Sure, you can go to Chaska. And the reason I know about this whole conversation is that we have dash cameras in our trucks. For the Minnesota test, anyway. And I had to sue the state of Minnesota over that. I sued the state of Minnesota to get those cameras allowed in those trucks. And so we've got this whole thing on videotape, okay? So he goes to Chaska the next day, pays for the Class A license, does all that. A month later, he gets a letter in the mail that says, you've applied for a Class A license, but there's no record of a road test. You got to go take and pass a road test before you can get a Class A license. It's like, you got to be kidding me. So he goes to Chaska and he goes, look at this letter. And they're like, yep, no road test. Got to take a road test. Dude, I took a road test last month at Egan. Well, I'll go to Egan then. So he drives to Egan, gets to Egan, he goes, look at this letter. Yep, no road test. Dude, I was here June 21st, 1 month ago, 12:30 in the afternoon, and I took a road test and I passed it. Nope, you didn't. The problem is he didn't keep the paperwork that that examiner gave him, okay? So he comes to us and he says, guys, can you help? And we're like, well, we don't have a copy of the paperwork, but maybe we got the video. And we looked, and sure enough, we got this whole conversation between this young man and the state examiner. Congratulations, you passed your test, blah, blah, blah. We got the whole thing on videotape, right? So what I did was I had my training director play it on a monitor and had him videotape it with his phone. And I said, go out to Egan and show him the video. So he goes out to Egan and he goes, I got video proof I passed the test. And they're like, we don't care. Chaska's the one that screwed this up. Go to Chaska. He drives to Chaska. I got video proof I passed the test. Well, we don't care. Egan's the one that screwed this up. Go back to Egan. He's back at Egan for the third time in the same day. Would you be mad by now? And get this, he goes in there. I got video proof I passed this test. And they responded to him by saying, we don't care. We ain't even going to look at your video. So he calls me from there. He's pretty desperate. He says, what am I going to do? I says, okay, who's the supervisor? He told me, Jessica. I says, okay, tell Jessica two things. Tell her the first thing I'm going to do when we hang up is I'm going to call my attorney. His name is Paul Applebaum. He's the guy that sued the Department of Public Safety. Believe me, they know who Paul Applebaum is. And then secondly, I'm going to call my friends at KSTP Television. I advertise with them guys. I got a little bit of an in there, okay? Not much, but a little bit. And I'm going to call them up, I'm going to tell them what's going on, and I'm going to try to talk them into coming out and interviewing you out there and see if they can interview these supervisors as to why they won't even look at your dang video that proves you passed this test. He calls me back a few minutes later. Well, it's taken care of now. But I mean, is that what it should take for a state agency? I mean, we've got video proof. Now, here's the real point of this story, guys. The same guy that screwed that young man over is still there and still doing the same crap. Does he get fired, disciplined, demoted, transferred? Hell, someday he'll probably get promoted, okay? The incompetence at this agency is unbelievable. And you've seen that on the news recently with all of the testing delays and stuff, okay? I mean, they are, yeah. So, be very anal with this. Keep all documents, inspect the documents very carefully, very anally, front and back. Make sure everything is on the up and up with your license. If not, get it corrected as soon as possible, okay? Now, the last sentence on the first page of the handout, you need to complete a medical self-certification form when you get your permit. This is really important that you understand this part of the process. To that end, let me get one of these on the screen for you here. With the handout that I've given you, flip the handout to the very last page. That is the CDL medical self-certification form, okay? Now, you're going to need to fill one of these out when you get your permit, okay? And you have 4 options here as to which category you are going to certify that you fit into. The first 2 are interstate. The second 2 are intrastate. The people that need to qualify in the intrastate categories are either people under age 21 or people that can't pass a DOT physical on the federal level but can pass one on the state level. The threshold for passing a test is higher, the physical is higher on the interstate than it is the intrastate. As an example, on the interstate side, you got to see 20/40 with both eyes, correction allowed. But on the interstate side, you can get by with 20/40 in one eye. So a person with one blind eye can still drive a truck, but only in the state of Minnesota. Okay? So that's why there's that different possibility. Now, you do not need your health card to get a permit. And you do not need your health card to get a license. There are people that work with the state of Minnesota that think that you do need it. Now, this is a federal form we're looking at on the screen here. And it gives you the option of required, which is category 1, non-exempt. If it's not exempt, then it's required. And category 2 is exempt, which means not required, correct? Well, why in the world would they hand you a form that has the possibility of being exempt and then they tell you that you can't be exempt? How can you not be exempt when they give you the option of being exempt? So if you go there and you say, I don't have a physical, just check category 2, sign the thing, and hand it to them. And they give you any grief. I mean, I've heard from students that examiners, these people that work there, are saying, no, you can't get your permit, you can't get your license, you can't get a job, you can't do any of this stuff. Look, you need a DOT physical to get paid to drive a truck. And so let's say you don't have a DOT physical and you go in to apply for a job. Yeah, I'm here to apply for that driving job on Craigslist. I saw it in the thing. Here's my license. And they'll say, okay, do you have your physical? No, I don't have that. Well, there's a clinic right down the road. Go get a physical and come back. An hour later, you're back there with the DOT physical. Okay, now can I get the job? Sure. That's all you got to do. And a DOT physical is pretty simple. I mean, it's no big deal. The cost is anywhere from $45 up to $145. Don't get screwed over and pay that kind of money for it. They check your blood pressure, your vision, heart rate, hearing. You pee in a cup to check for high blood sugar, diabetes, and also check for blood in your urine. Okay, so it's pretty simple, non-invasive physical. Doesn't take much time, and you just need it to get a job. Okay, you don't need it to get the license. You don't need it to get the permit. You need it to get paid. There are government jobs where you don't need a physical, so that's why you have that option. Now, once you get the physical, then you have to fill this form out and hand it to them. Check category 1 if you're over 21 and you're healthy. And then notice what it says there. It says current medical examiner's certificate from a certified medical examiner must be submitted. So the state of Minnesota then has a copy of your medical card, right? And since they have a copy of it, they are going to know the expiration date of your medical. Let me do this. I'm going to put my public record on the screen here. So this is my public record here. And you can see that I have a Class A license. Here's my Class D status, license good standing. Here's my commercial status, license good standing. Here are my endorsements, motorcycle, tanker, passenger. I have no restrictions. Now my medical is certified. I'm category 1. But here's the real kicker, all right? Here's my expiration date, the 20th of May next year, all right? So the state of Minnesota knows the expiration date of my medical. 2 months, 40 days, 60 days before that date, they're going to send me a letter reminding me that my medical is going to expire, telling me that if I wish to maintain my CDL driving privileges, that I should resubmit an updated form. If I don't do that by May 20th, what happens to me on May 21st? They take away my CDL. I now have a Class D license. I no longer have a license to drive a truck. Okay? And so where that really becomes problematic, if, notice that the expiration date for my license is some years later, so if I go in for that to renew my license, and they took away my CDL 2 years ago, I have to go all the way back to square one. I have to take the permit test. I got to wait 2 weeks before I can take a road test. I got to pass all those tests to get my CDL back. And the other thing that's going on right now is there are some new federal rules that go into effect February 7th that are going to require a very comprehensive training program prior to setting for a test. So if my license, if I lost it and I was trying to get it back after February 7th, I'd have to go through and take full driver training program all over again. And that training program that's going to be required for people to get their permit on February 7th or after is going to cost at least $6,000 bucks. Okay? At least $6,000 bucks.
The whole schooling then?
Yep. See, right now, you don't have to go to school to get your CDL. You don't have to do that. So when you show up for a test, they don't require you to have a certificate of training. But as of February 7th, anybody that gets the permit February 7th or after, they will have to take the training before they can take a test. So I'll tell you what, if you're thinking of doing this, get it done now. Okay? Don't wait 6 months, because then you're going to have to go through a bigger program than what you would do now. It will cost you more money and take more time. Okay? There's going to be a lot of really upset people come February, because they're going to be like, well, what are you talking about? Last year the price was this. Well, it ain't anymore. Well, that's the one I want. Can't do it. It's not allowed. The new rules do not allow those older and shorter programs. Okay. Now, the other thing that's really important about this medical. So let's say, for the sake of discussion, you know, if you're healthy, your medical card is going to be good for 2 years. So let's say, for the sake of discussion, that you go through this process, you get your license, you get a job, and then a year from now, you get a different job. So now you're not driving truck. Okay. A year after that, you get the letter that says that your medical is going to expire. And you say, well, I don't need the medical. I ain't driving truck right now. If you don't respond, they take your CDL away. All you need to do is take this form and, hang on, let me clear this here. All you do is take the form and check exempt and send it in. And then you get to keep your CDL forever. Okay? Just take the form, click exempt, send it in. They let you keep your CDL. You'll have to pay for it upon renewal. Okay? And then 5 years down the road, you want to go back to driving truck? Fine. Just go get a DOT physical, then recertify in the required category. You're good to go. Real simple. But don't forget to renew this form when this form expires. Okay? It's so important. All right. Any questions about any of that? All right. Now, close a couple things here. Okay. This manual, well, first off, there's a federal rule that says anything on the test has to come out of the manual. Okay, so that's good news. So now we know all we got to do is study the manual to pass the test. All right? The manual was written in the middle 1980s after some federal legislation back then. And at that time, not only did new drivers have to take this knowledge test, but those of us, I've been licensed since 1975, so I was caught up in this. When those of us that were previously licensed and didn't have to take the test to get it, when we went to renew, we had to take the test. And there were a lot of us truck drivers that couldn't pass the dang test. Had never taken one before. And so that upset a whole bunch of people. And so the feds went to the people that published the manual. It's the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. And they went to them and they said, dudes, we need to help these guys. They're having trouble with the test. What can you do to help these people with the test? And what they did is they went back into their manual and they created these test your knowledge boxes. Okay? So they created these boxes that have these questions, and I'm telling you, these are the questions on the test. These are the questions on the test. Okay? This first test your knowledge box is on page 2-8 of that book we've given you. You don't need to turn to it unless you want to, but let's go over these questions and see if we can figure this stuff out. Now, the first question here, what is the most important reason for doing a vehicle inspection? That's a pretty simple no-brainer. What's the answer to that? Safety, okay? So that's no big deal. I mean, that's not hard to figure that one out, right? But the next one, what things should you check during a trip? Any ideas what things you should check during a trip?
Tires,
Tires,
lights.
lights,
Anything that might go wrong.
anything that might go wrong. Well, here's the deal. The correct answer is watch your gauges and use your senses. Smell, listen, and feel. Here's the deal. This is one of those questions that you can't figure it out without knowing the correct answer. If the question had said, what things should you check when you're actually driving the truck down the road, you'd have given me the correct answer. But the question didn't do that. The question was rather vague and ambiguous. Now, if you were to object to that and say, hey, that's a bogus question, and you know what they'll say? It's in the manual. In fact, if you go back and look in the section, find it here. So here's, in that section, here's the information. For safety, you should watch your gauges for signs of trouble. Use your senses to check for problems. Look, listen, smell, and feel. There's the correct answer. Okay? Then they go into what things to check when you stop. But during a trip, they're talking about when you're actually driving the truck. Well, how do you know that? Well, you'd know it if you studied the test your knowledge questions. Okay? If you had studied these questions and gone back in the section and highlighted the answer to those questions, then you would be likely to remember the answers to it. Okay? Now, it's 6 hours worth of reading to get through this entire book. To be honest with you, I think you should look it over. You know, at least start to read stuff, and you know, if it seems interesting, keep reading. But then when you get to these test your knowledge questions, go back and find the answers to them and highlight them. Then you have the perfect study guide. Okay? So let's continue our process of checking these things. All right, name some key steering system parts. Well, that's going to be up on, I think it's page 2.2 of the manual. Let's go up here and look. It's over on this side of the page. So here are the steering system parts. They have a diagram. And it lists steering wheel, tie rod, steering shaft, power steering cylinder, steering arm, spindle, steering knuckle, drag link, pitman arm, gearbox, and hydraulic fluid reservoir. So they tell you what those parts are. Okay. The next question is, name some suspension system defects. Well, that's over here on this column here. There's steering system defects, but here's suspension system defects. And they talk looking for spring hangers that allow movement, cracked or broken spring hangers, missing or broken leafs in a leaf spring. If 1/4 or more are missing, puts the vehicle out of service, but any defect could be dangerous. You're looking for broken leaves in a multi-leaf spring, or leaves that have shifted, so they might hit a tire or other part. Looking for leaking shock absorbers. You're looking for torque rod or arm, U-bolt, spring hangers, or other axle positioning parts that are cracked, damaged, or missing. So that's the correct information for that question. Okay. So what you would want to do is go back and highlight that information. And again, what you're doing is you're developing a study guide for the questions in this section. Okay. So back to our test your knowledge. Question number 5. What 3 kinds of emergency equipment must you have? Any ideas? Fire extinguisher, correct.
Road cones.
The reflective triangles. And fuses, spare fuses. What? Spare fuses are emergency equipment? How is that? That doesn't make any sense to me. If you know anything about electrical components on motor vehicles, if you had a fuse go out, if you replaced it with another fuse, what would happen? That fuse would pop.
Mm-hmm.
Something caused that fuse to break, right?
Right.
Well, what caused that? It doesn't make any sense to me to have spare fuses. Now, if they made you had spare fuses along with a test meter, ohm meter, spare wire, electrical connection, shrink wrap, all that stuff, then I could see it. But with just the spare fuses, that's stupid, I think. Guys, I have about 20 trucks in my fleet. I have spare fuses in every single truck. I have no idea if they fit. No idea. I have no idea. And in 21 plus years of operation, I've never had to use one. Okay? Because again, if a fuse pops, the first thing I got to do is what's causing the fuse to pop. It's stupid to put another fuse in there and just have that go out too. But that's what the rules are. All right, question number 6. What's the minimum tread depth for front tires? 430 seconds. Okay. Tread depth is measured with a tread depth indicator. Where'd my tread depth indicator go? I guess somebody has borrowed it. I used to have one right here. Huh. Interesting how things seem to disappear sometimes. Oh well. Well, the way you measure the depth of a tread, there's a little device that you stick in here to measure it with. But again, I don't see where mine went. All right. So front tires minimum tread depth is 430 seconds. For the rear tires, it's 230 seconds. Here's kind of a bonus question. What kind of vehicle is not allowed to have recaps in the front? Anybody know? Buses. Trucks are allowed to have recaps. I wouldn't do it, but you are allowed to have a recap on the front of a truck, but not on a bus. Okay.
Let's recap.
That's where the original tread is worn off. So what they do is they buff it down so it's smooth, and then they vulcanize a new tread on that tire. So they call them a recap or retread. Okay. All right, number 7, name some things you should check on the front of your vehicle during a walk-around inspection, and what they're referring to there are the lights. Number 8, what should wheel bearing seals be checked for? Leaks, grease leaking out of the seal onto the hub or the outside of the wheel. Number 9, how many red reflective triangles are you supposed to carry with you? 3, correct. Number 10, how are hydraulic brakes? How do you test hydraulic brakes for leaks? There's a formula. Remember?
No.
Pump 3 times and hold the pedal for 5 seconds. During that 5 seconds, the pedal should not go down. So you pump 3 times and then hold it for 5 seconds. Okay? So you got to remember that formula in order to get the correct answer. Again, you got to read the manual if you're going to pass the test. The beauty of the test your knowledge questions is it narrows in on only those things that are on the test. So that's quite advantageous. Why put the starter switch key in your pocket during the pre-trip inspection? And that's so that no one starts the truck up and drives off with you underneath it. Let's go to the next test your knowledge section. A couple pages down here. Why should you back towards the driver's side? So you can see better. Okay. Number 2, if stopped on a hill, how can you start moving without rolling back? Well, the manual talks about using the parking brake. And if you're driving a Class A vehicle, they also talk about the lever on the dashboard that operates the service brake on the trailer. You could use that also. With today's trucks, you don't need either of those things, but that's what the manual tells you you're supposed to do, so that'd be the correct answer. Number 3, when backing, why is it important to use a helper? To avoid blind spots will be the correct answer, okay? Number 8, what's the most important hand signal that you and the helper should agree on? Stop. Bonus question. If you're backing up and you lose sight of your spotter, what should you do? Stop. Exactly, okay? Number 5, what are the 2 special conditions where you should downshift? And that's prior to going down a hill and prior to going around a curve. Number 6, when should you downshift automatic transmissions? And the correct answer is prior to going down a hill. Now, what the manual written in the 1980s doesn't realize is these automated transmissions these days will downshift themselves. I promise you something. So you're coming up to a hill. You need to slow down before you start down the hill. When you slow down, the transmission will downshift itself. And once you start down the grade, it may very well downshift even more. Once it senses from the computer controls that you're going downhill, it may very well downshift itself again. Okay? The manual doesn't know that because the manual was written in the middle 1980s, so the correct answer is prior to going down a hill. Number 7, retarders keep you from skidding when the road is slippery. So first of all, what is a retarder? It is an engine brake, okay? The engine brake was invented back in 1960 by a Cummins motor engineer. Now, the reason for it is that the drum brakes on these trucks are they're not all that good. You don't have drum brakes on your car. Whatever you drove here today, you don't have drum brakes on it, especially the front. You got disc brakes up front. Disc brakes have been around for years and years. They're much better than drum brakes. Well, again, this was invented back in the 60s when they didn't have any disc brakes, exclusively drum brakes. And when you're going down a steep downgrade with a heavy load, it's very difficult to keep this thing under control. If you use the brakes too much with drum brakes, what happens? They overheat and they fail. You lose your brakes. I can remember back in the 60s reading about a taconite truck up in Duluth. Lost his brakes, and this guy went through a building. Went through the building. Killed a couple people inside. Went in one side, came out the other side. So this Cummins engineer figured out, you know, an internal combustion engine, you're putting a fuel mixture, vaporized fuel, into a cylinder head, causing a combustion. That explosion of fuel is propelling you down the road. Well, what the Cummins engineers figured out is that you could do the exact opposite. You could stop putting fuel in it, and you could close exhaust valves, and now instead of pushing you down the road, it has this braking effect. It's trying to stop you with the rear tires that are hooked up through the rear end transmission into the engine, okay? So the engine brake, engine retarder, Jake brake, it's all the same thing. It's nicknamed Jake brake because the Cummins company licensed that technology to a company called the Jacobs Company to sell the license to other engine manufacturers, hence nicknamed Jake brake, okay? So in a Cummins, it wouldn't be called a Jake brake because, anyway. Now, the engine brake is operating on the rear wheels. Again, you use this whenever you drive down a hill. There's an on and off switch for the engine brake on your dashboard. Every engine brake I've seen, there's always an on and off switch, okay? In the on position, it only kicks in when your foot's off the gas. The minute you touch the gas pedal, it turns the engine brake off. The bigger trucks, the engine brake is adjustable. Some are low and high, some are low, medium, and high. And what that's doing is affecting different numbers of cylinders. So like in a 6-speed diesel, full on means it's on all 6 cylinders. In the low position, it's 2, and in medium, it's 4. So you can play with the position of the engine brake, and the advantage of that is that you can accommodate different levels of grade as you go down the hill, okay? Now, when you start down a grade, you are to reduce speed before you start down. If it's posted with a given speed, you should start 5 miles an hour less than whatever that is. So if it's posted at 30, you're supposed to start down at 25. So reduced speed, reduced gear, lower gear, engine brake on. Now you start down the hill. If the grade is such with the load combination, if your vehicle increases speed and climbs 5 miles an hour back up to that top speed, then and only then are you supposed to use the brakes. And there's a technique that you're supposed to use with the brakes in that situation to slow down. Anybody know what the formula is for that? The formula is use your brake pedal for 3 seconds to reduce to 5 miles an hour. So you're going to have to lean on that brake pedal pretty assertively, pretty firmly, in order to get it slowed down 5 miles an hour in 3 seconds. When I'm out on the road with a student and we're doing a steep hill like this, 9 out of 10 of my students do not lean on the brake pedal hard enough to get that done. They're not assertive enough. You got to be pretty assertive. So the concept is you're going down a hill, the speed's going back up, use the brake pedal firmly, reduce by 5 miles an hour, and then let go of the brake pedal. Now, why do that? Why not just use the brakes the whole time?
They'll heat up.
They'll heat up and fail, okay? Now, disc brakes are available for these big trucks and trailers. There's just very few of them being used. But out of all the trucks that I have one truck with disc brakes, and it's only on the front axle, okay? Everything else is drum brakes in my entire fleet. If I ever was in a position where I could order new trucks from the factory, I'd get them all with disc brakes. That's what I would do if I was in a position to order a truck from the factory. Now, the question in the manual is, engine or the retarders keep you from skidding when the road is slippery. True or false? Well, that's false. It'll actually cause a skid because the rear wheels are reduced in speed. How many of you, when it snows, go find a big parking lot and go out there and pull on the old e-brake and have a little fun, right? So you don't want to use a rear brake when it's slippery. Now the manual is going to tell you that you shouldn't use the engine brake whenever it's wet, icy, or snow-covered roads, okay? Well, first of all, if it's raining, you got all the traction in the world. You don't need to, you go ahead and use your engine brake when it's raining. You're not going to have any problems with traction, especially in a loaded truck, a heavily loaded truck when it's raining. You'll have a ton of traction, okay? So that's not an issue. Icy. Do you know where me and my truck are when it's icy? Not on the road. We'd be parked, okay? I've operated this business 21 and a half years with 0 reportable collisions in 21 and a half years. Not a single collision in 21 and a half years. It meets the threshold of a reportable collision. Not a single insurance claim in that time. And I've done that because we're conservative here, especially when it comes to weather conditions, okay? Now, snow, you have to make a decision as to whether it's reasonable to continue. You know, if you've got one of those March snowstorms where it's 40 degrees out, who cares? But, you know, that little snowstorm we got last Wednesday, I think it was, that was pretty slippery, wasn't it? Sunday afternoon, there was a little dusting. That got slippery. We've got some snow coming in tomorrow. That might be a little slickery. So you have to make a decision whether it's smart or not to continue in the conditions with a commercial motor vehicle. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations very explicitly state that if the road conditions are dangerous, then it's your decision. You need to either slow down or pull off the road. And it is the decision of the driver to do that, no one else's. That is your decision and nobody else's to pull over and stop, okay? All right. Question number 8. What are the 2 ways to know when to shift? Road speed and engine speed are the 2 ways to know when to shift. Okay. Let's go on to the next one here. How far ahead does the manual say you're supposed to look? And the first time I saw that question, I got it wrong, because I would always choose the furthest distance. Everybody know the correct answer, though? 12 to 15 seconds. So you need to know that. You need to read the manual in order to get the correct answer here. Number 2, what are the 2 main things to look for ahead? Traffic and road conditions. Number 3, what's the most important way to see to the sides and rear of your vehicle? Mirrors. Number 4, what does communicating mean in safe driving? Signaling. Let's go to the next one. Number 1, how do you find out how many seconds of following distance space you have? When the vehicle in front of you passes some sort of fixed object, a line, shadow, crack in the road or something, you're supposed to start counting. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi.
Class D.
Yep. But then the next question is, if you're driving a 30-foot vehicle at 55 miles an hour, how many seconds of following distance are you supposed to have? Well, there's a formula. What's the formula? And the formula is, for every 10 feet of truck, 1 second. So a 20-foot truck, 2 seconds. 30-foot truck, 3 seconds. 40-foot, 4. Okay? 5, 5. Add 1 more second to that formula if you're over 40 miles an hour. So our question was 30-foot truck, 55 miles an hour. The correct answer then is 4 seconds.
Oh, not 1 second. Not 1 second per 10 feet, but 1 second overall.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly. So 73-foot truck at 60 miles an hour would be 8.5 seconds. Okay? 10 feet for 1 second for every 10 feet, plus 1, just 1, if you're over 40. Okay? All right. Number 3, you should decrease your following distance if somebody's following you too closely. True or false? False. Number 4, if you swing wide to the left before turning to the right, another driver may try to pass you on the right. True or false? True. That's why when you're preparing for and approaching a right-hand turn, you always stay as far to the right as practical. You don't want to hit anything, but you got to pinch off the curb lane best you can. Number 5, what's a hazard? That's a potential emergency up ahead. That's a road user that might pull out in front of you and cause an accident. Why make emergency plans when you see a hazard? To get you better prepared to avoid a collision. Okay. Let's do one more here. Why should you back towards the driver's side? You can see better. We already did this one, didn't we? Didn't we?
I thought you did.
Yeah, we did that one. Okay, so here's the next one. What are some tips to follow so you won't be a distracted driver? Well, they talk about, checking your map ahead of time, and certainly don't be using any sort of text or email or any of that sort of stuff. All this is covered in Section 2 of the manual.
Did they actually add that in there then?
Yeah, this has been in there a while.
Oh, no, I mean, did they add the phone stuff in there?
Well, the handheld phone has been illegal in a commercial motor vehicle for several years. So it's been in the manual for some time. Okay. Number 2, how do you, and incidentally, the Minnesota statute pertaining to cell phones is even stricter than the federal rules. Guys, you can't even do this. That's illegal.
If they see you with your phone out at all.
Yep. They will give you a ticket. Okay. I mean, you got to be really, really, really careful of that. Okay. I have a cradle I put in my car so that I can stick it up there, and then I'm good to go. Okay. You can't hold it in your hand. You just can't do that. Not even for GPS. Okay. You can use the GPS on the screen on your display in your car, but you can't pick up and use GPS on this side.
100% hands-free state.
Yep. They're really strict on it. I'm surprised they came in with such a strict law. So, number 2, how do you use in-vehicle communications cautiously, and that's hands-free. How do you recognize a distracted driver? Well, they're weaving, speeds going up and down, stuff like that. What's the difference between aggressive driving and road rage? Aggressive driving are people that are driving in an unsafe manner, but the road rage people are trying to do harm, is the difference between those two. What should you do when confronted with an aggressive driver? Stay away from them, don't make eye contact. And what are some things you can do to reduce stress before and while you drive? And they talk about easy listening music, take a nap, chill out. Okay? All right. So with the time we have remaining here, let's go look at the test questions on these practice tests on cdltest.co. And again, you can get to that through our website. And we'll go down here and we'll do the Class A test number 1. And you can see this one is 115 questions. Okay. So first question, you're driving in heavy traffic. What is the safest speed? What do you think? The posted speed limit, a speed below the limit, the speed of other vehicles, a speed above the limit, or none of the above? Yeah, since it's heavy traffic, I'm going to say the speed of other vehicles, okay? If it's light traffic, they're probably driving too fast. So I would say that's not true in light traffic. But in heavy traffic, that's perhaps the best speed.
You're probably going under the limit.
Right, in heavy traffic. Next question, what is the purpose of the air compressor? First option is air compressor pumps air into the safety valves. Next one says pumps air into the brake pads. Next one says pumps air into the air storage tanks. And next one is pumping air into the cabin of the tractor. Which one's correct? Third one, air storage tanks. Okay. The act of operating a motor vehicle in a selfish, bold, or pushy manner without regard for the rights or safety of others best describes what?
Road rage.
No, remember when I told you about road
Aggressive.
rage?
So it's just aggressive driving.
It's aggressive driving. Because the road rage is trying to do harm to other people. Okay? Next question. When you brake hard on a slippery surface in a vehicle without ABS, your wheels should never lock up.
False.
Well, that's kind of a trick question. Because they will lock up if you use the brakes too hard, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But it says your wheels should never lock up. Should.
Oh, should.
Now, how are they asking this question? Are they saying if you're driving properly, you wouldn't lock your brakes because you know what you're doing?
That is a tricky one because it's either on you or it's on the vehicle.
Yeah.
Because if the vehicle doesn't have ABS, it will lock if you press
Right.
it down, but you shouldn't lock them.
Right.
So it's.
I don't know either. Let's try true and see what happens. And wrong answer.
So they were talking about the truck.
So they were talking about the vehicle. Okay. What the heck just happened here? There we go. All right. Next question. What is the emergency airline for? Okay, here's our options. It supplies air to the tractor air tanks and controls the service brake on the combination vehicle. Next option, it supplies air to the trailer air tanks and controls the service brakes on combination vehicles. Isn't that the same damn thing? That is the exact same thing, isn't it? Okay. Third one, supplies air to the trailer air tanks and controls the emergency brakes on combination vehicles. Next one, supplies air to the tractor air tanks and controls the emergency brakes on combination vehicles. What do you, or none of the above. What do you think? I'm going to go with the third one. Supplies air to the trailer air tanks and controls the emergency brakes on combination vehicles. Okay? If a tire blows out, you should apply the brakes hard to stop quickly. False.
No.
That will cause a lack of control. How many times does the manual say you should look? Excuse me. How many times does the manual say that you should shift gears while crossing the railroad tracks? Oh, so it's 0 then. Right? Yep. It's kind of a weird way of asking the question, though, isn't it?
Don't shift while crossing tracks yet.
Yep. Cargo should have at least one tie down for each how many feet of cargo? The answer is 10. But let me show you something. Let's say you don't know the answer. So you're going to guess. Well, let's try 3. And it says, sorry, wrong answer. Then use the back button. Go back. Oh, crap, it won't do it. Something's wrong with the website today. Normally you can go back and try it again. And figure out the correct answer, but that's not working today. Sorry. But what you can do, if it's working, you can go back and forth and find the correct answer. Okay? All right. Front end header boards can protect the driver from cargo in case of a crash or sudden stop. True. That's the whole purpose of those things. Road rage is operating a motor vehicle with the intent of doing harm to others or physically assaulting a driver or their vehicle. True. So here's the minimum number of tie downs. So what I say it was? Oh, this is a different question. The last one was asking you how many you needed, or how many feet did you need one for. This one's saying what's the minimum number of tie downs for any flatbed load?
4?
2. When the temperature drops, bridges will freeze before other parts of the road will. We all know that. We're Minnesotans. Yeah, sure. We know.
That underbreeze.
Next question. If you must stop on the road or shoulder of the road, you must put out your emergency triangle devices within how many minutes? 10. But here's the deal, guys. These rules, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration rules and regulations, tell you to do it as soon as possible. That's what this says. It says the driver shall, as soon as possible, comma, but within any event, comma, within 10 minutes. Place the triangles on the road. Okay? So I don't like questions like this because they mislead you into thinking that you have 10 minutes. You don't have 10 minutes. You're supposed to do this as soon as possible. And the only thing that should cause you to delay putting the triangles up is if you're making a 911 call or administering to an injured person. Otherwise, you should be putting the triangles up first. Okay? It's one of my little pet peeves here. What two things are most important in preventing a rollover? Is it evenly loaded trailer, properly inflated tires? Is it keeping the cargo as close to the ground as possible and driving slowly around turns? Is it the weight and length of the vehicle? Is it keeping the cargo center of gravity as high as possible and driving slowly around turns, or none of the above?
Personal?
I'd say it's the second one.
Yeah.
Keep the load as low as you can and then slow around the curves. Yep. The parking brake system applies and releases the parking brakes when you use the parking brake control. The parking brake system applies and releases the parking brakes when you use the parking brake control. Makes sense to me. A 12-ounce glass of beer, 5-ounce glass of wine, and a 1.5-ounce shot of liquor, all about having the same amount of alcohol.
It's very.
I think it's true.
I think they probably say it's true, but that's not true.
Well, they say it's true. And that's all I know about that stuff.
It entirely depends on, because if you take a shot of 151 versus you take a shot of just regular vodka, they're going to have completely different alcohol content in them.
See, and I don't know nothing about that stuff. So, all right. How long does it take for a typical tractor trailer unit to clear a double railroad track from a stop? 15 seconds. Now, how would I know that? I read the manual. Next question. What is the purpose of the air compressor?
Did this one.
We did this one.
Pumps air into the air storage tanks.
Yep. So it's the third one there. Next question. For a cargo fire in a van or box, your first action should be to open the trailer door. True or false? False. You're going to put air into the box and cause a bigger fire. So no, don't be opening no doors. You should be closing doors, not opening doors. Too much weight on the drive axles can cause poor traction. Well, I don't like this question because poor traction on what? See, it'll increase the traction on the drive wheels, but decrease the traction on the front steer axle. I'm going to guess false. Let's see what happens here. Oh, good guess. Next question. When the wheels of a trailer lock up, now incidentally, trailers built since, oh God, 2000 and something anyway, early 2000s, have ABS on them. But this says when the wheels of a trailer lock up, the trailer will tend to swing around. Would that be true or false? That is true. the trailer will lose directional control and start snaking back and forth on you. How do analog brakes help you? Do they, first off, help you brake faster? Do they help prevent power skids? Do they help keep wheels from locking up? Do they shorten stopping distance, or all the above? It's the third one. They help keep wheels from locking up. Actually, they prevent it.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What is the first thing you should do in an attempt to recover from a trailer skid? Brake harder? Steer with the trailer? Huh? I don't know either. Sound the horn? Or stop using the brake? Stop using the brake, people. Okay? If any time you're having directional control with a motor vehicle, get off the brake pedal. I don't care if you got ABS or not.
Whenever I get a new car, I always take it out on an icy road and try and spin to see if I can get control back, just so I know what it feels like.
Sure. Have you driven a car with dynamic stability control?
No.
You can't spin them out.
Huh. Interesting.
Won't let you. The computer won't let you.
It'll automatically
It'll
readjust.
take power away. It'll hit the brakes on you.
Huh.
You know, with a rear wheel, like with a Camaro or a Mustang or something, when it's slippery, you can, you know, floor it and the back end will snap.
Right.
Right? Can't do that. You hit the throttle in a car with dynamic stability control, traction control, all that stuff, it won't spin the rear wheels. Won't do it. Now you can turn that off, by the way.
It makes sense, because if it's faulty, that could cause problems.
Yeah, I haven't come across them being faulty, but you can turn it off. Off-ramp and on-ramp posted speed limits are usually safe for large, heavy vehicles. Kind of a trick question. Remember, you should be 5 miles an hour underneath that. I'm going to say false. See what it does. Huh? I'm correct. 5 miles an hour underneath that stuff. So curves and hills, whatever the speed is, you should be 5 less than that. Okay? What are the 4 basic type of retarders? Engine, exhaust, hydraulic, electric. It's going to be this last one. It's according to the manual. That actually isn't right, but that's what the manual says. When the air tank pressure falls to about 100 psi, the governor allows the compressor to start pumping again. True or false? And that is true. The governor or regulator, whatever you want to call it, is to keep the air pressure between 100 and 125 psi. The most common skid is one in which the drive wheels lose traction through excessive braking acceleration. And I'd say that's true. Letting up on the brake pedal reduces air pressure and releases the brakes. Well, it releases the brakes, that's for sure. Does it reduce air pressure? Not really.
No.
Wrong answer.
Huh.
So I'm going to go back and see if I can find
I
that.
might have to just click refresh it.
Oh, God, look how far back I got to go. You stupid thing here. Okay. I don't know what I just did.
It looked like it went back randomly and gave me a random question.
Yep. All right, the only proven way to overcome sleep depth is...
Sleep?
Yeah, and I don't see sleep on there, do you?
No.
So I'd say none of the above is the correct answer. Which of the following can be hazards? I'd say all of the above.
I was going to say all of those things could be answered.
What might happen if the trailer is too high when you try to couple? Is it may not couple correctly, or the kingpin may fall off, the trailer may tip and flip over, or all the above? It's the first one.
It's the first one.
May not couple correctly. When testing the low pressure warning signal, turn the electrical power off. Step on the brake pedal, reduce air pressure.
Turn it on. Just turn it on.
Oh, turn it on. Okay, turn the electrical power on. Thank you. Step on and off the brake pedal to reduce air tank pressure. The low air pressure warning signal must come on before the pressure drops to less than 60 psi. Okay? The low air warning signal is supposed to come on between 80 and 60. Between 60 and 80 pounds, the pressure signal, low air pressure signal is to come on. So it has to come on before you drop below 60. Okay? You should decrease your following distance if a vehicle is following you too closely. Oh, that's stupid. A trailer jackknife is more likely to happen if the trailer is loaded or empty. I'd say empty because it's going to have less traction. Okay. The use of the brakes on a long, steep downgrade is only a supplement to the braking effect of the engine. And that's true. They want you to use, you are to slow down, downshift, and use the engine brake before you touch your brake pedal. That's the correct way from going down, for going down the hill. Okay. Number 24. Charge the trailer air brake system. Push the air supply knob in. Shut the engine off. Step on and off the brake pedal several times to reduce the air pressure in the tanks. The trailer air supply control should pop out when the air pressure falls to the pressure range specified by the manufacturer. Now, this is how you test the tractor protection valve. This is how you test the trailer emergency brakes. This is how you test the air that flows to all trailers. This is how you test the trailer service brakes. This is how you test the air pressure gauge. None of the above. It's the tractor protection valve. When that button pops out, that tells you that the tractor protection valve is working. Okay. When air tank pressure rises to approximately 125, 130, the governor stops the compressor from pumping air. It's true, because it keeps you between that 100 and 125. Speeding traffic is the #1 cause of injury and death in roadway work zones. I'd say that's probably true. Next question. The air tanks do not hold enough air to keep using the brakes more than 2 times if the compressor stops working. I'd say false. Coffee and a little fresh air will help an alcohol drinker sober up. False. One more and then we're done. Who is responsible for a commercial vehicle being overloaded? The driver is the one that's getting a ticket, people.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's your responsibility. Right? All right. That concludes my little class on preparing for the permit. So use those test your knowledge boxes to study the book we've given you, and use cdltest.co to do practice tests. Any questions? No. All right, we're all set. You guys in Hudson, head outside, go find either Mark or Gary, and they'll get you going and get you back up to speed on the rest of the lesson plan for today.